start today as we talk about this idea of resiliency, and success. Well, really, the title is Resiliency and Remembrance, the Pathway to Success. And I'm going to go ahead and share my screen with you now. The first thing is really to have a clear understanding of what is the natural disposition, right? What is our natural disposition? And to understand that happiness is but one part of that. There's also, there's a whole range of emotion that we live within. Yeah, I know I'm not sharing yet, but I got it now. Okay. Okay, am I sharing my screen now? No, I'm not. Okay. Okay. All right, first time doing this on the Mac. They ask for a bit more than the regular PC. All right,
would you like to quickly send it to me and I can share it?
Yes, I will do that. Thank you so much. And thank you all for your patience. Okay, it's not letting me share it. All right, I'm going to just share with you from here. Am I still coming through?
Yes.
Okay. All right. So in Surah 53, ayat 43, Allah says, we hear Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, wa annahu huwa adhaka wa abka, and that it is He who grants laughter and tears. Right now, this is an important reminder for us, simply because we understand that we're going to go through different cycles. We're going to go through ups and downs, right? Now, while the idea of happiness is
You can keep going from here.
Okay, you're gonna figure it out. Okay, all right. Thank you.
Turn the volume up. Okay.
So while the idea of an unconditional, uninterrupted happiness sounds good, it's not something that is it's not feasible. Nor do we understand that to be the natural condition, of our lives on this realm of existence. I want to start by sharing a quick story. Now I want you to put 4 images in your mind, because I don't know if we're going to be able to get this image up to you, but I'm going to share, just put this in your mind. One is an old, think of like an 80-year-old, 90s, older man, much older man. Imagine him walking down a road, right? He's walking down the road, and then imagine an older pickup driving down the road, driving away. And now picture like not a luxury vehicle, you know, a Mercedes or Lexus, something like that. And then think again back to that man walking down the road. Now, I know I asked you to place these three images in your mind, and I want you to think about a town where much, you know, like many places in America, that saw growth. That growth was dependent on manufacturing, you know, production. And there's a town that it's lost its last big factory, its last big place of employment. And now this town is spiraled into, you know, there's unemployment, there's crime, there's substance abuse, and so on. And when these things happen, folks go out and they research, they do interviews, they find out how are people feeling, what are they thinking about the situation that they find themselves in. So one researcher, she goes out and she talks to an older man, and he may be late 60s, early 70s. And she asks him, what does he think about the condition of the town now that, you know, they're in the midst of this spiral? And he responds kind of nonchalantly. And he's like, I'm not really worried, not much. And she says, why? Why aren't you worried? And he says, well, my father actually didn't have a car. When he went to work, he walked to work. He walked 5 miles every day to work, right? And he says, he did this for as long as I can remember. And then when it was my turn, right? When I got old enough to work, you know, I was out, you know, taking care of myself. And then later on, I had a family. He says, I found myself at a point where I had a pickup truck and I took care of that pickup. You know, I had my own business. I worked, I took care of myself, my family, but that's the only thing I ever had was that pickup truck. So that's what I drove. He said, my son, however, he went off and, you know, I sent him to school and he got him a nice job. He moved away and he drives a Mercedes, really nice car, right? He's got a high income earner. He's doing well for himself, his family, his kids, all went to private schools. And his son just graduated from college and he's coming out of college. He's got some kind of advanced degree. And a part of his compensation is that they are not only giving him housing, they're also giving him a vehicle, right? A corporate lease vehicle, right? Whatever he wants. So he's going to drive something even better than his father did. And he said, but you know what's really interesting here? She says, what? Well, what's interesting? He says, his son is probably going to walk to work. She said, what? Why would you even say that? And he says, because hard times create strong men, and strong men create easy times, and easy times create weak men, and weak men create hard times, right? So it's this cycle, right? Hard times create strong men. Strong men create easy times. Easy times create weak men, and weak men create easy times. So you see this cycle that goes on. And when I heard this, I really paused and said, I mean, really, it really hit me. Because I had to think about this. I think about it as a parent and the conversations that I've had with other parents around giving our children more than we had, or trying to give our children things that we didn't have, right? But in the conversations, a lot of the conversations that I've had, despite the successes that our children may have, the things that they've done well at, their achievements, there's also the aspect of, well, I heard it really said very well, which was we gave our children everything we didn't have, but weren't able to give them what we did have, right? And that's not across the board, but just in general, you think about that sentiment. And what does that have to do with resilience and success, right? The easier things are, the less resilience is really required of you. Right? Resilience is something that is attached to struggle. Right? And Allah tells us in Quran, He says, you know, indeed, we've created the human being into struggle, into toil and struggle. And toil and struggle is attached to our reward, to our success or our failure. But it's also our struggle or our efforts that are also used as a way to put us into struggle. Right? Allah tells us, you know, here in Quran, is that you will definitely hear much from the people of the book that will grieve you. Right? Much from the people of the book, just in general, but more specifically, He says you will be tested. You will be tested with the loss of lives and goods, the fruits of your toil and your struggle. Right? You will have the intent to do well. You'll have the intent to benefit. You'll work towards something, and what you work for may not or will not come to fruition when you want it to come to fruition. Right? You have to deal with those ups and those downs. And the response to those ups and downs, right? This is where we tap into resiliency. And this is where the remembrance becomes the most important thing. The remembrance of Allah, right? Subhanahu wa ta'ala becomes the most important thing, because that is the things that allows us to keep the proper perspective on everything, everything that we go through. And I have to also add on. So as much as I really appreciate that quote, what it made me think about also was another saying that comes from our community. And I had this listed in the presentation. I had it listed as a anonymous Black Muslim source, right? I'm not sure who first said it, but I recall the first time. Can you put it on mute? Okay, I recall the first time that I heard it, you know, it said that if one can eat, then two can eat. Right? If one can eat, then two can eat. There's a recognition of resilience in that statement right there. That the trial or the circumstances that we encounter, that we go through, these are not things that are going to diminish us. They're not going to put us in a position. Okay. I'm sorry. Yes. Okay, hang on a second, people. Okay, all right. Well, I just got that. All right, one can eat, then two can eat. All right, now, thank you so much for that. All right, so the idea of this inherent sense of resiliency is something that, as a community, I feel like this is one of the things that has been handed down to me as a member of this community, as an African American in general. Right, one of our hallmarks has been resiliency. But how is that being challenged? That resiliency is being challenged by a false perspective or false perception that we're being fed, that we are being challenged with, and that is one of control. I'm going to move to my next slide. Okay, all right. This is me. I was and I mentioned it before, for those who didn't know or haven't heard. So I was a firefighter with the Sauk Village Fire Department for a little bit over a year. And when Allah tells us in Quran, He says that that we are to save ourselves and our families from the fuel, from the fire whose fuel is men and stones. There is not a better physical representation of that than the fire service, right? And actually responding to fire. And then it also makes us think about when Allah tells us, is that Allah disdains not to use the similitude of things lowest as well as highest, right? To make a point. He will use examples, metaphors, analogies, whatever, of whatever. It could be making a paper cup or a paper plane, right? To express a point, to express a truth, to remind us of something that is going to be beneficial to us. So I want to talk to you a bit about some of the truths that presented themselves during this particular chapter of life for me. So as a firefighter, right, and this is all connected to resiliency, remembrance, and success, right? From a Quranic standpoint, when we think about shaitan. All right, I'm going too far. All right, from a Quranic standpoint, we think about shaitan, who says that, when he asked for Allah's reprieve, when Allah says, okay, get out of here, you refuse to bow down, you refuse to acknowledge my creation, what I have breathed my spirit into, and Iblis responds with, well, basically give me some time. And he says, but within that time, I'm going to assault them from multiple angles, from the front, from the back, from the right and the left, from spaces that they can't see, right? And the whole purpose of that attack is to land us in that fire, right? That fire whose fuel is not only humanity, but stones as well. And I liken this to the references to the stone. Says the people, I believe it was the Talmud or the Ad, one of them, the people who built their homes out of, within the sides of the mountains, out of stone. So the fire that encompasses or engulfs the human and their creation, or their use of the material world, right? So firefighting. So what did this teach? What was the similitude in this, and what can we gain from this? The biggest and most important element is going to simply be being ready, right? Having a sober mind. Thinking back to that first story, where the man is talking about his father and himself and his son. The context of that was a society, right, that has started to fray, that has started to melt down because the conditions are not ideal anymore. Right now, they're in a position now where there's unemployment, there is, and with unemployment and crime, and now we have, substance abuse. We've seen this national epidemic, if you will, right? It's called the epidemic now, with oxy and and other prescription drugs, and things of that nature. That has been the response to difficult circumstances, right? Where people have looked to manage or to cope with their difficulties through, through mind-altering substances, right? So whether it's alcohol, whether it's over-the-counter or prescribed drugs or whatever. But the thing is, they have traded off the difficulty or escape the difficulty by leaving their conscious, leaving their conscious mind, right? And in that instance, because of that, they are not able to actually fight that fire. They have now put themselves in position to be engulfed, right? They're of no use to themselves and no use to those around them. There was an article, a study that was done by, I think it was by the CDC, or an affiliated, like a drug abuse organization. They keep statistics. And even within, and they looked at Illinois, Iowa, Hawaii, Alaska, I think it was a nationwide survey. But basically what they came out with is they said that not most, but of those who drink, many Americans, they have sought to cope with the current difficulties of COVID, the pandemic. They've sought to cope with that through alcohol and through other substances. So I'm going to pause for 1 second. Yeah, they've sought to cope with those things through alcohol But that was the main focus of their particular research. So, so the idea of being prepared is not just about having the skill, because there's a lot that goes into the fire service, right? On each apparatus, right? There's specific tools that'll be there that you're trained on. You have to know what's available. You have to know what to do. But the most important thing that you're going to have is your ability to respond, your ability, your conscious mind, right? Simple as that. I would get pages because I was an on-call firefighter. So that means, you have a pager, and if there's a fire, you get a page. It doesn't matter what time. You get up and you go out and respond. But and you go to the fire station. You jump in. Put your gear on, jump in the rig, and you're off. Now, what's really amazing about that is that while I haven't been in that field for probably close to almost 10 years now, is that some of those practices of just being ready, right? Backing into parking spaces so that if I have to get in the car and roll out immediately, I don't waste time with the backing out and looking around. I can pull directly out. I can respond. Keeping your shoes, near the door. It's a bunch of little things, paying attention to entrances and exits, looking for tripping hazards, just a bunch of little things, just a state of mind, right? This is a part of the remembrance, understanding that the threat, the cause for a demise or whatever, it's not always going to be something that it's not going to be something that you can see all the time. It's not, and it won't be things that you're going to have the time to, pause and deal with, but just being prepared. So that was that. Let me see what we got next here. Okay, so another one of the similitudes, boxing. Boxing is a wonderful metaphor for life. And as we see right here, taking a knee is not a loss. Are there any boxing fans? We watch boxing. I mean, most Muslims, just because of Muhammad Ali, right? And he hasn't, obviously, may Allah have mercy on him, grant him paradise. That was quite some time ago, but that's left an indelible mark. But done so much for the sport of boxing, but more importantly, the attitude and some of the life lessons that we get out of this. If we look at our lives as a bout, right, as a 12-round bout, then there's a lot to be gleaned from this picture right here. We think about taking a knee. Right now, this guy, obviously, who is taking a knee, he's probably in trouble, right? But we don't know if he's come back from this position to win the fight, if he finished, if this was the end, we don't know. But we know that there's a strategy in that, right? There's a strategy in taking your time, in the time that's given to you to refocus and move on. So unfortunately, sometimes we feel like stopping. And of course, I'm not going to go into it, but obviously, we could go in a different direction with the taking a knee as more of a political representation. But just in this term, in this instance, we're talking about, you're up in the fight and you get hit and you have to go down for a minute, right? It's not a loss. It's a recognition of the moment. Now, let me move on. All right. Now, speaking of the greatest, Muhammad Ali, what's very important for us to keep in mind is that despite how good, right, how great a boxer Ali was, he had a corner team. As a matter of fact, every boxer, right, that's engaged in the sport is going to have a corner team. They're going to have a cut man. They have a trainer. You know, they may have, you know, somebody that's just over there inspiring them. And as a matter of fact, in this particular picture right here, we see to Ali's left, we see his trainer, Angelo Dundee. And to his right, we see Drew Bundini Brown. Now, what's interesting here is that Angelo Dundee, he was an X's and O's kind of guy. He was non-emotional. He didn't get riled up. He just, you know, he just kind of went step by step. You know, this is what I see. This is what's going on. This is what you need to do. But Bundini Brown, he was the complete opposite of that. Angelo's son in a book, he talked about him, and he said, you know, he'd be so emotional, you know, and talking or whatever. He said he could cry at a drop of a hat, right? But what was more important, I think, about him in particular, is that he had a particular philosophy about boxing in general. And he said, the greatest champions, the greatest fighters are chosen by God. He said, the greatest fighters are chosen by God. He said, they're not made or cultivated by great trainers. And then he went on to say, he says that even, he said, great, you know, basically great fighters are born. He said, if they were made in a gym, he said, they'd be getting turned out like cookies at a bakery, right? He says, there's something about a divine inspiration and a decree that determines the greatness of the fight. Now, like I said, when Allah tells us that Allah says he disdains not to use the similitudes of things lowest as well as highest, we think about what does this mean for us? And in particular, this image, I think about the angels, right? We all have, you know, we have two angels, one on each shoulder, right? And we think about what this particular moment and in every fight means. There's going to be rounds where, as a fighter, the fighter does well, right? The fighter does well. He's slipping his opponent's jabs. You know, he's watching his footwork. He's making sure he's not getting caught. You know, he's reading the other fighter's body language. You know, he's responding. He's doing what he's doing everything that he's trained for, that he's practiced to do, and it's all working. It's all working. So when he goes to the corner, his trainer is going to tell him, not just you did a great job, which he may tell him, you know, hey, you did a great job. You know, you did this, you did this, you did that. He's also going to tell him, all right, now in this next round, you need to be watching out for X, Y, Z, right? Because this is a progressive struggle, right? And if we think about if the opponent is Shaitan, and we think about those moments that we get to stop and reflect, and we got 5 of them every day. At the very least, we got 5 moments, five times of reflection where we get to stop, we get to pause, we get to reflect, we get to think about everything that has happened prior to that break. And then we get to think about what comes after that. And this is the moment where we get to reconnect with Allah, and we get to say, okay, I did good, or the other side, say that was not a great round. Say you got hit with everything that was that your opponent was throwing at you. You couldn't slip a jab, you couldn't duck a hook, you couldn't get your feet right. There was nothing that you could do in that round. You did good just to survive. You may have even had to take a knee, right? Your trainer may have been hollering over to you to take a knee, right? Get yourself back together. And you come back to the corner. Now you can do one or two things. You can feel defeated and say, you know, I'm a terrible boxer. I didn't do anything. All the training I did, went all out the window. Nothing worked. This guy hit me with everything. I couldn't do anything. But that's not the purpose of that break. The purpose of that break, it gives you time to, if you got the right corner team, they're going to tend to your wounds, right? You got cuts, they put the ice on you, get the swelling down, put some more Vaseline in your face, give you a sip of water. But more importantly, They're going to tell you, okay, look, yeah, it didn't go well. Things didn't go the way you wanted them to go, right? He did this, he did that, he did this. Okay, so here's what you need to do. You need to do X, Y, Z. You need to go out with this kind of tempo. These are the things that you want to look for. And then as you go out, right, you have these things on your mind, right? So you have an assessment of what you did that was good, and you have an assessment of what you need to do better. And you're looking for adjustments from your opponent. Another wonderful thing that I take from boxing is that during a fight, you don't hear, aside from the punching, you don't hear the boxers talking, right? I mean, you may hear them in a clinch yapping, but you don't really hear them talking. All the noise is coming from the trainers. All the noise is coming from the corners. And the fighters are listening. The fighters are listening to those folks that are on their shoulders. They're listening because there are observations that are being made, right? There are things that they can't fight for them, but there are things that they can share with them, their perspectives, because they have a different perspective. They're outside. So a part of the corner team that we have, one is the internal voices. It's the one where we're able to assess what we did well, what we need to do better. And it's also the support system around us, right? Our loved ones, our friends, those people who see the fight that we're in and who can give us good counsel, right, as we're fighting, right? But most importantly, is to remember that the break that this round or this the in-between round represents is something that we also have when we think about what it means, what those 5 daily prayers are for, and how we should use them. You know, even as we are praying, we're remembering Allah. Where we're also remembering during difficulty, during up or down, right? All right. So what do we have here? Anybody want to shout out? We know this should be all apparent what this is. Somebody tell me what this is.
Pottery wheel.
This is clay, right? This is clay, molding clay, right? And it looks like whoever, if you look at the hands, we assume that because, it's clay on the hands, they look, like there's some age, some experience to them, that this is a person that knows what they're doing. It's also important for us to remember that as Allah tells us in Quran, the human being, we made from sound clay from the earth, that molding process, it requires moisture, right? It requires that clay have a certain consistency. It can't be too wet. It can't be too dry, right? It requires movement. It requires speed. It requires the shaping. And this is where we have to remember the connection between revelation, as is given to us in the Quran, and water, right? We know water is something that is always connected to revelation, or truth, right? Divine and eternal truths. Water is a connection, right? And water mixed with the earth, so the divine revelation mixed with the earth and the intentional shaping, the movement, the hands. This is who we are, and this is how we draw a benefit in seeing ourselves in that way as a product that is continuing to be shaped, that is continuing to be developed and made. But that's only possible if it is the right kind of clay, if there is the proper consistency. And this brings us back to the idea of remembrance and revelation, right? Allowing that to do its part to shape us, right? To keep us malleable, to keep us in a position where we can be formed. I like to, you make the comment or the observation that sometimes we will incorrectly say, well, this is just how I am, right? This is what the world made me. This is what my experiences made me. This is who I am. As if to say that Allah has no say-so, that we cannot be reshaped or reformed, improved, healed, corrected, through those breaks and through revelation. So Allah gives us this, and this all ends up with, and this should be intention versus control. And it's intention versus control because there are two things that takes place between a loss of hope or where we start to entertain, we start to cope in ways that actually bring us closer to the fire and take us further away from Allah. A lot of these things are built into this false narrative, a false idea that we actually have more control than we really do. If we think about the pitches that are made to us, I'm gonna go back to luxury cars. I think that's one of the best examples, the clearest examples. Most of these cars, most of these brands, and most of these when they're pitching this stuff, they pitch the idea of control, right? We got this traction control. We got this. You can control the weather. You can control the grip. You control how much gas the car uses. You can control your sounds. You can control all of these different things. You're driving fast, and we got this new suspension on it that your control is better than ever, right? But yet and still, we got cars being totaled, every day. Yet and still, we got cars going to mechanic, things breaking down every day. But they sell this idea of control, and that idea of control is also in, if you go to this particular school, if you get this degree, it's going to give you control of your future. You'll get this particular job. You'll get this house. You'll get this. You'll get, it's all about this idea of being able to control things that really we have absolutely no control over, right? Allah also tells us, and I believe this is in Surah Araf. This wasn't too long ago. It was, I'm going to paraphrase because I don't have the exact. It says, if it be that your your families, the homes you dwell in, the commerce in which you fear decline. It talks about all the things that we work for, right? The relationships that we appreciate, that bring us a sense of contentment and joy. He said, if those things are nearer to you than Allah, says Allah does not. That is, in a sense, that is a form of rebellion. It's a form of negligence, right? To allow for any of those things that that we can work for, that we can appreciate, for those things to supplant our love for and our appreciation for Allah, right? But those are things that are quite often attached to this or misapplied in this understanding of control, right? I do this and I'll get this, right? I control outcomes. I control attitudes. I control this and that and that. But none of those things are true, right? We have absolutely no control over anything or anyone, right? As a matter of fact, that's also mentioned in the Quran, where I believe it says to tell, say that if I could stop any harm from coming to myself, then I would do so, right? And he said, this is in the words of one of Allah's messengers. If I could stop any wrongdoing or any hardship for myself, it would be done. But that's not the case, right? Even for those who have been given revelation, they had no control. The only thing that they had was their ability to control their intentions, which is the only thing that we have, right? We have the greatest ability to be able to control and to manage our intentions. There is a hadith. I'm going to share that with you. It says, okay, it says, it was narrated on authority of Amir al-Mu'min, Abu Hafs, Umar bin al-Khattab, may Allah be pleased with him, who said, I heard the Messenger of Allah, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, say, actions are according to intentions, and everyone will get what was intended. Whoever migrates with an intention for Allah and his messenger, the migration will be for the sake of Allah and his messenger. And whoever migrates for worldly gain or to marry a woman, then his migration will be for the sake of whatever he migrated for. It's related by Bukhari and Muslim. And I want to read that ayat I spoke. Matter of fact, it's a Tawbah. It's from Surah 9. It says, say, if it be that your fathers, your sons, your brothers, your mates, or your kindred, the wealth that you have gained, the commerce in which you fear decline, or the dwellings in which you delight, are more dear to you than Allah or his messenger or the striving in his cause, then wait until Allah brings about his decision, and Allah guides not the rebellious. Surely Allah speaks the truth. So this supplanting of Allah and this prioritization of control over intentions, it does result in a sort of putting ourselves in a sense of being rebellious, right? And it's a source of discontent, disconnection, dissatisfaction, a bunch of this, right? Discomfort, disappointment, the angst, the sorrow, the frustration that comes with having the illusion of control shattered, and then looking to find comfort, looking to find to cope in ways that are outside of the remembrance of Allah, right? And that coping that we see, and as we in our weakest state, that coping is in Muslims. We know as Muslims, we say Muslims don't drink, but we all probably know Muslims who drink. Matter of fact, I'm not gonna go down that road, but sometimes there are folks who are culturally Muslim, right? And they say they're culturally Muslim, and alcohol is not even, it's not really frowned upon, right? I mean, but for us, we understand that this is something that we have to also be mindful of as well. And not just alcohol. I mean, anything where we find ourselves coping with the struggles, with the frustrations, with the schemes of Shaitan that we may find ourselves dealing with, that we're not aware of, but we find ourselves in it. Anything that we run to that is not Allah, that's not rooted in the remembrance of Allah, that's not rooted in looking at the way that our beloved Prophet Muhammad, peace and praise be upon him, the examples that he and all the other righteous messengers have shared and showed as responses to those difficulties, that puts us nearer to the fire, right? And what we have to remember, going back to the boxing, kind of boxing metaphor, that analogy, is that we're fighting and then we get a break. We're fighting and then we get a break. We're fighting and then we get a break. The prayers that Allah, that he has commanded for us, those are breaks. Anytime we stop and reflect, we're able to think, remember Allah, remember what he has created us for, remember that our greatest and most important and abiding intention is to be successful, not just in this life, but to be successful in the life to come on the day of judgment. Those are breaks. Anytime we get to assess how we did before and what we need to do next time, those are breaks and those are benefits that Allah has given us. I want to close before I open it up these last few minutes, reminding us, I already said that, you cannot hate yourself into being a better person. I say that because if in those moments of reflection, we think about how we have responded, how we have dealt with the schemes of Shaitan, if we're in one of those moments where we have fallen victim, where we have, we've slipped up, we couldn't do anything right, that was that round we got caught with everything. We couldn't move, couldn't see anything. We did good to make it out that round. If we use that time of reflection to simply beat up on ourselves about what we didn't do and how bad we moved, how poor our vision was, and we don't spend that time thinking about what we need to do moving forward, what we need to do better. If we don't spend that time, then that's not going to help us in terms of our ultimate goal. All right. And even then, I want to cap it with this. Even then, it's important for us to, in that assessment, for us to also think about, you may have fallen once, but you think about the 8 or 9 times that you saw what was coming and you avoided it. You think about the 8 or 9 times where you were successful. It's important to highlight that and remember the wins. Remember the wins, and remember how you failed, so you don't fall the next time. So, alhamdulillah, Allah has given us, He has given us guidance, and He has given us this idea where we can look at any situation in life, because He has told us that this idea of similitudes, Allah is teaching us in our everyday lives, and He's given us truths that we can apply throughout every area of our life. But one of the most important things that I want to just kind of bring to cap this with is that beginning to think about where we are on the continuum of time. Are we in that place where we are weaker? What are we producing? Are we producing strength? Are we producing weakness? Are we being resilient? Are we being clear about our intentions? Are we being clear about our remembrance and how vital that is for our success? So with that, I'm going to end and open up for any comments or questions.
Thank you so much, ma'am, Sarika. I appreciate all of the great
reminders. You're muted.
How about now? Can you hear me?
Still muted.
She's not muted.
I'm not muted.
I can hear her.
You're probably muted on your computer.
Maybe you can't hear me. Turn your volume up.
Oh, I know what you did. You didn't connect your audio.
Okay.
No. I can hear her. We can hear you.
Muted.
We can hear
You
her.
might just want to put it in the chat because, oh, there you go.
All right. Can you hear me now, Tariq? Everyone else is able to. I'm not sure what's on your end.
Nope.
Okay. So I'm not sure if he can hear any of us then. So I am
still muted. Or is it me that's muted? Have I been talking all this time and nobody heard me?
We hear you as well.
We can hear you, both. We can hear her too.
It's a one-way. You are not able to hear us for some reason. Give me 1 minute here. I'm going to move my computer down.
Okay, I can hear you now.
You can hear me now?
Yeah, maybe it was me.
All right, no worries. First of all, I just wanted to thank you. I know we only have a few minutes left. If others have questions, please feel free to put them in the chat or just raise your hand as well. I wanted to just ask one question. You talked about being ready, and you gave us several examples of being ready, and it kind of aligns with several of our other Taleems. I'm thinking of Imam Ramadan, who talked about land and being ready as well. Can you expand on that just a bit to talk about readiness and what that looks like and what that means in our everyday lives?
Sure.
And so, others, you can please mute your microphones if you're not speaking. We're getting a lot of background noise. Thank you.
So in a nutshell, readiness is preparation. To be ready is to have an idea of what possible circumstances could arise, but then also what is your response going to be? So it really is, how we are encouraged, to contemplate on death, there's a whole slew of tangents that come along with that. If we think about death is not the end, you know, so what does it mean to think about death? It is to prepare yourself, your family for it. It is to have your affairs in order. It is to, you know, it's to live in a way that, not knowing when Allah is going to call us, to do our best to be ready when called. So so I mean, it really is a hyper consciousness. But just in general, it is preparation, and you know that could be widely applied.
Alhamdulillah. Are there other questions before we end in dua? So I'm going to thank you once again, Imam Tariq El-Amin. I'm going to make dua that all on this call and all unable to be on this call and the believers throughout will be ready. Will be ready for the blessings that Allah has bestowed on us, whether it is that husband and that wife, or that job, or that friendship, whatever it is that you seek. I hope that Allah prepares you to be ready to receive it. I pray that you have people in your corner and on your team that inspire you, that applaud you, that give you the accolades and the love and the direction that you need, whether that be saying something towards the right when you are in the wrong, or applauding your efforts in doing what is right. I pray that Allah bless us as a community and bless us as individuals, and bless us to do all that is pleasing to Him. I thank you all for joining us this Taleem, and inshallah you have a beautiful week, and we'll see you next.